And we're live. How you guys doing? Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto, and today is a Saturday, and I thank you all for lining up already. Some people got in here before the show started, and George Lackey, of course, has already figured out that Live and Dangerous is my salute to Thin Lizzy, named after live albums. The first one was In Excess. The second one, of course, was the Rolling Stones. So here we are on a Saturday. The reason we're broadcasting on a Saturday as opposed to Sunday is that tomorrow is the Free Press Marathon. So there you have the running number I'll be wearing tomorrow. The reason my number is so low is that I registered about 3 seconds after midnight on New Year's Day when marathon every year. This year, I believe, is my 13th Free Press Marathon and 18th overall. So I thank you all for checking in. Tim Sullivan says he's sorting puppies for cuteness in Temple, Texas. And you got your check yesterday. Yeah. Don't bother waiting for that thing to clear. You don't need to worry about that. And I will admit that that joke is not actually mine. I read an article a long time ago where someone was joking about what job they would have if they weren't required to actually get a job that made sense. And they said, well, I'd love to sit in a room, watch MTV, and sort puppies all day long. So I think if you're going to try to trick somebody, mystery shopping is obviously an attractive thing because people like to shop, and what's more fun than shopping with with other people's money? People checking in from Los Angeles, California. Samuel, hey, thanks for doing that, my friend. I know that for you out there, it's 3 hours earlier than it is now. But of course, I have the world clock in front of me, and I can tell you that while it is 1 o'clock in New York, it is 6 o'clock tomorrow in New Zealand. So unfortunately, I have to pick a time that's convenient for most people, and the bulk of my viewership does come from the United States of America. Although with a good number of viewers in Canada and Australia because they speak similar languages. Someone asks from Anchorage, what time do you shoot for tomorrow? Tiger Man's asking. If you mean by time, I'm shooting for about noon, and I'm being facetious here. I run marathons very slow. I have not been doing as much training as I would have liked, and I'll do about a 5-hour marathon, which is slow. Earlier in my career, I ran a 3:41, which was pretty fast for somebody just training in their spare time. And I haven't seen a sub 4-hour marathon in quite some time. But I'm an old guy. My goal is I run them, I finish them, and that way I can bring the medal in here on Monday and hold it up and say, hey everybody, I got another medal to add to the pile. I run them, I finish them, and that way I can bring the medal in here on Monday and hold it up and say, hey everybody, I got another medal to add to the pile. So like, for instance, last year I got this. But you don't get the medals till after you cross the finish line. And as I was joking with somebody else, when you cross the finish line after having run 26.2 miles and you lean over and they put the medal over your neck, it's so heavy that it actually does jolt you. So somebody asked, will you bring back the beard this winter, please? It's kind of funny. I did actually have a beard for about half a year. If you go back a little over a year ago, I guess. I had a beard which I grew actually in the spring and summer, and it didn't feel like me. But I have a lot of people who say, Steve, I'm looking at the videos of you with a beard and then today without a beard, kind of like the beard. But the problem is it takes a while for me to grow it in because my hair is so, well, I mean, this is obviously a toupee, but my hair is so fine and thin that it looks real scraggly for a while. And when I grew the beard, I was only doing one video per week, so I could get away with that. Chuckster's checking in from Orange County, California. Hey, glad to hear from you. Also, Silence in Cincinnati, Ohio. Beautiful town. I've driven through it a few times. Simon says he did mystery shopping several years ago. Those companies seemed legit. Well, yeah, there are companies out there that will hire people to go in and shop at the stores, but the problem is that it's not hard to find people willing to do that. So the odds that an email you get randomly sent to you to pay you, hundreds of dollars to go shop and then go buy gift cards that you then send the information out. That story doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But anytime that you are being offered a lot of money for nothing, but they're also asking you to cash their check and then send you some money, there's a problem. Hey, Bill from Maine, thanks again for the book, Bill Hartley. I was talking about the Dodge Daytona Plymouth Superbird book. I sent out a stack of those this past week. The people at the post office love me. I walk in literally with 2 bags filled with books that are all packaged up and ready to go. So I had those left over from a car show I did not attend. Very complicated. JP from Columbia, South Carolina, watching the Gamecocks trying to beat the Gators. What countries have I traveled to? Good question, my friend. Besides Canada, which every person in Michigan has been to Canada at one time or another. I've been to England 3 times, France twice, and Switzerland once. I love going to Europe. The travel time getting there and back is a bit of a hassle. I like England, a lot of history there. London's beautiful. They speak the language, so I can travel fairly well. In France, I'm not too crazy because my French is limited to about 3 words, which are not terribly useful. And then Switzerland is a mixed bag because people there do speak English, French, German, and Swiss. But I'm always terrified of getting off someplace, being lost, and having to ask for directions from people who are like, "Sorry, I can't help you," but they're saying that in another language. So Samuel says I looked like a lumberjack with the beard. Yeah, I should have broken out the flannel shirts. Jack, look. Checking in from Deming, New Mexico. Glad to have you check in. Upper Hudson Valley in New York. Yeah, it's sad because I've driven through New York a little bit, but I've only been to New York City a bunch of times, where I flew in most of the time. I drove there a couple times on business, believe it or not. And then I've also been to Geneva along Lake Seneca when I did the radio thing there. But I know that upstate New York's beautiful. Haven't spent as much time there as I like, though. Michael says he's from the state I pick on the most, Idaho. And actually, I don't pick on Idaho as much as I pick on the people from Florida and a couple of southern states who've made the news recently. Idaho is just a fun one because it's a fun name to say, Idaho. And since so few people are from Idaho, you can throw it out there and it sounds like an unusual destination, going to Idaho. But I don't actually pick on them a lot. Lisa Hill, do you have an Alexa? No, I do not. And I'm scared of an Alexa for several reasons. One of which is I don't want something that's listening to me all the time. And number 2, I don't want something where it might overhear me say something like, "Gee, I'd like to have a such and such," and then find out that one got bought and shipped to me without me thinking about it. I buy a lot of stuff off of Amazon, but I kind of like to sit at a computer and type it in myself before it gets ordered. So there's that. By the way, in case you're curious, and Duncan's checking in from Melbourne, Australia. Thank you, Duncan. According to my world clock, like I said, it looks like Australia is, hold on, I just saw it. Australia is, it's 4 o'clock tomorrow. As opposed to where I am, it's 8 minutes after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So a lot of fun things happen in Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah, actually a lot of fun things happen in Florida altogether. And by the way, you have to understand that there's a reason that Florida and California have got so many crazy people. And I went to law school in California. I lived there for a couple of years. I spent time in Florida also. And the states, Florida and California, are so beautiful that people want to go there. They go on vacation. They go, "Wow, I like to live here." So, you get all kinds of people from everywhere else. And that's one of the things I noticed is that when I was in California, I met very few people who were born there. Almost everybody came from someplace else. And so when you have that many people coming to a place, it's bound to happen that some of the crazy people are going to show up too. So whenever you see a story in the news about crazy Florida man doing something, I'd love to find out where that man was born, because the odds of him having been born in Florida are very, very slim. Hey, Lee says he's born in Eaton Rapids, Michigan. Hey, I know where that is. That's over near Lansing. A nice little town. Yeah, Lisa points that our phones are always listening. Absolutely. In fact, I got my phone right here. And I assure you, if I mention some odd product out loud right now, that I'll start getting ads popping up for it in various news feeds. I've done videos on that. And that's disturbing, but trying to figure out which apps I need to go in now and turn off to make those stop, I don't know. I'm thinking about buying a Peloton, the exercise bike, so I can, stay in shape over the winter. And I mentioned that to somebody, and now I'm getting ads for Peloton and all of their competitors in all of my feeds. And, so it's getting to the point now where we just assume our lives are being intruded upon by technology. Hey, Steve, can credit acceptance raise your monthly payment as high as they want when they want? Asking for a friend. Well, credit acceptance can do whatever the contract allows them to do if you signed a loan contract with them. So Credit Acceptance Corporation is based here in Michigan. I used to sue them a lot when they were smaller, but now they're huge, and I haven't been involved in that kind of law in a while. But when you sign a loan contract with anybody, it is in fact what governs the relationship between the parties. So Sub GR says, I'm closest to you from Davison. That might be true. That might be very true. I'm sure you know that my mailing address is in Atlas, Michigan, which is not far down M15 from Davison. So, by the way, yeah, we are over 200 people already watching. In fact, we got 216 people as of right now. The Fishing Trucker says, I grew up in Lansing. Lansing, of course, is the state capital of Michigan, not far from East Lansing, home of the Michigan State Spartans. And I've spent a lot of time in Lansing. My family lived there for a few years when I was a child. I actually lived in Spartan Village, which is basically housing for students at Michigan State University. I was not a student there, though, but my father was. So just got a huge TV. You can use it when not riding a bike. Bill, what's funny is I have a water rower, which is the exercise thing where you're doing a simulated rowing, but the resistance is a big thing filled with water. And I have it in my living room. And in the wintertime, I literally just bring it out, I tip it down in front of the TV, and I do a half hour a day on the water rower watching TV. The problem is the water rower is not as good of a workout as running or biking. And then the other problem is it's just boring. It's mind-numbingly boring. It's just back and forth, back and forth. And even if you're watching fun television, it gets boring. So I think I need to step it up a little bit. The Peloton looks like it might do that. So Victor Valenti says, you're well worth watching. Thank you. I appreciate that. Matthew Rathburn, I don't know if you're messing with me. You better not be messing with me. He says, grew up in Flint listening to WWCK and WFDF. And of course, Matthew, if you are telling the truth, you listen to two radio stations I worked at, because this, of course, is WFDF. That's the talk station I worked at for many years. And WWCK is CK105, which is another radio station I worked at as a disc jockey. Now, I did this disc jockey gig before I went to law school. I did the FDF talk show gig after law school, and I was doing call-in talk, but I have too many mugs and stuff back here to put them all up on the thing. So I worked in radio on and off. Actually, I still do for the most part, but a bunch of different radio stations all over the place: Bad Axe, Saginaw, Flint, Detroit, Lansing, Pontiac, a few others. So yeah, but if you listen to radio in Flint in the right time frames, you may have heard me either playing the hits before law school or talking after law school. So maybe Steve can order us a pizza. I got a lot of grief because I complained about a pizza that got delivered to me where the courier had clearly dropped it or slanted it hard, or maybe went around a corner fast. I don't know. But half of the toppings were up against one side, like a tidal wave of toppings, and half of it was perfectly edible. And people said, "But Steve, you just slide the toppings back on and eat it." It's like, yeah, you can do that, but number one, it's more of an effort. It gets messy. But number two, it's just the idea that you pay for something, you should be getting what you pay for. As a consumer protection attorney, I'm very conscious of these things. Somebody asks, does it hurt your back to do a water rower? No, the resistance is very, very slight. Most of the motion is in your arms and chest and also in your legs. So if you do it, you don't actually do a whole lot of work with your back. Rational Bushcraft asks, if I have a water rower, why do I use a motor on my canoe? Because I'm tired from the water rower and I'm too tired to canoe. The motor on my canoe is so I can cover more ground, that's all. So, headed to Michigan this week. Anything I should watch out for legally? Depends on where you're going in Michigan, but if you're going up I-75, any place near Troy, Michigan, be aware of the fact that construction has got everything locked down to the point where you can't get off the road for about 20 miles. I was going through there yesterday in the traffic jam. I saw two cars that bumped into each other. One of them caught fire, and there's actually just flames shooting into the air, and I was so bummed I didn't have a good camera with me. I could have gotten some great footage of a burning car. And what's ironic is the car that was burning was a Jeep, and it was within eyesight of the FCA headquarters there in Auburn Hills. There was some kind of dumpster fire joke there, but the fire was caused by an accident, not by the electronics on board. If you wanted to put effort into your food, you wouldn't have ordered a pizza. Exactly. I pay other people to put effort into my food and hope that they only put food into my food, if you know what I mean. By the way, we're at 250 people on the feed. Thank you very much. I'll tell you right now, we hit 420 last week, and I did 500 on one. So I'd like to see if we can break 500 again, but, got to work with what you got. Born and lived for 7 years in Bad Axe when my dad managed the A&P store. Wow. Bad Axe, Michigan. Yeah, I don't even think there was an A&P store when I was there, or if there was, it may have changed names. There was a grocery store north of town, but Bad Axe is up in the thumb of Michigan, right here, about hour and a half north of Detroit. For those of you who are curious, it's a real place. Bad Axe, 2 words, B-A-D, next word A-X-E, and the name of their mascot is they're the Hatchets, the Bad Axe Hatchets. And the name of their marching band, of course, is the Marching Hatchets. So I don't know why, but it still entertains me after all those years. Do you run those marathons to work off those pizzas? Yeah, and vice versa. I eat the pizzas to fuel the marathons. So if you run a marathon, you burn a lot of calories. You can eat with impunity for a couple of days before and after, but then once it all returns to normal, you got to be careful. So. Was it in the 1950s you're in Bad Axe? Yeah, I was in Bad Axe in the early 1980s. In Minnesota, it doesn't count as a boat unless it's got a motor. And you measure your manhood by the cylinder count. Of course you do. But yeah, the interesting thing, and I mentioned, by the way, I mentioned that I had to register my canoe, and I mentioned that a recent trip to the Secretary of State's office involved registering my canoe. And I had a lot of people give me grief and say, oh my gosh, Michigan makes you register canoes. What's wrong with you guys? But in reality, the reason I have to register the canoe is only because it has a motor on it. Michigan requires you to register all motorized boats, and a canoe only counts as a motorized boat if it's got a motor on it. So I don't have a problem with that. It's got a 5 horsepower motor, 17 feet long. And just because it's shaped like a canoe versus shaped like a boat, I can see why the distinction does not matter. So, what years did you work at CK105? Sub GR asks, I worked at CK105 in 1988 and 89. And that's right around they changed formats. If you're from the Flint area, CK105 was WWCK FM. They were the rock station for many, many years. They were huge. And then they changed formats in 88 because they were losing a lot of market share. And at the time, Flint did not have a top 40 or, modern music rock station. And so they changed into a hybrid, what they call CHR in the radio business. So how about remote controlled stuff? Not sure what the question there is. I don't have any remote controlled stuff. I don't have any drones either. I keep thinking that I need to add a drone to my camera arsenal. I've got 5 GoPro cameras. I've got the camera I'm using for this video feed right now, and I've got a couple big DSLR video cameras, but I do not have any drone cameras yet, so I can't get good aerial footage of the stuff I shoot outdoors. Michigan makes you register everything, so you have to wait all day at the SOS office. Yeah, but Craig, here's the thing in Michigan, don't go to a Secretary of State's office in a big town. So if you live someplace, you can drive 20 minutes and get to a smaller office, drive in 20 minutes because the time spent in your car is more pleasant than time spent waiting in the office. So the last time I went to a big city SOS office, I only did it because I had to. I had to get a title replaced. And there's some places that will do a replacement title while you're on the premises, and those are usually only in big towns. But I've gotten a lot of paperwork done on my vehicles in very, very small towns because you can walk in, yank the number, they call you, walk, boom, and you walk right out again. So, but I realize that might not be that possible if you live in a big city that's surrounded by large cities. So we'll see. Remote control boats. Yeah, I don't have any remote control boats either. Casey points out that Michigan doesn't like left turns. Well, here's the thing. Michigan has what they call a Michigan left. And a lot of our roads are divided like Woodward Avenue. So if you're coming to Woodward Avenue, you need to make a left turn. You actually have to make a right turn and do a turnaround and come back. And it's called a Michigan left. But believe it or not, if they didn't have Michigan lefts, then what happens is you get these really, really big traffic backups, or you have to put in the left turn arrows at the intersections on major thoroughfares. And having driven in areas with the Michigan left and without the Michigan left, I can tell you I like the Michigan left. So I know people outside of Michigan are going, what are you talking about right now? And don't worry about it unless you come here. Then you find out. Somebody asked me specifically a moment ago about the microphone. And right now, the microphone I'm using is the microphone that is built into the camera. This microphone is not live, okay? And it's only because I don't have the equipment yet to run this into the thing that would allow me to do a live feed with it. So I'm hoping this sounds a little better, because I did alter the microphone settings a tiny little bit this week compared to last week. So hopefully this sounds a little better, but I'm also leaning back. Hey, hi, I'm from Nigeria. I'm offering you a share in a large sum of money or a payment on the condition you help them transfer the money out of the country. Yes, I will help you with that as soon as you help me with my puppy sorting job that I've got for you, where you can sort puppies by cuteness. I'll mail you a check to get you started. All you got to do is have a nearby dog pound and or pet store, or possibly even just somebody who's got a pregnant dog. Just stopped in to say hello from North Dakota. Hey, Lawrence, glad you did that. Never been to North Dakota. I've been to South Dakota. I had a brother who lived there for a brief period of time. 3 rights make a left. That's true also. And many people will point out to you that the United Parcel Service figured that out. And when the UPS lays out their routes for their daily drivers, they will often do everything they can to avoid a left, meaning that they'll go, we got to deliver all these packages today. How can we do it primarily making nothing but right-hand turns? And they'll figure out a way to do it and minimize the number of lefts to the point where they'll often have the guy drive 3 times around and 3 corners around the block as opposed to making a single left. But they've done the math in that, and they're smarter than we are. So D. Tobler says they've got the Michigan left in Utah now. Huh. Let me know how that works out for you. Live always sounds different, Craig. Yeah, that's true, but I'm trying to get the sound as good as I can. I'm a stickler for sound because of my days in radio, and the first experimental ones I did of live were horrible, and I knew that because I had the microphone set up completely wrong. I'm dialing it in, and I often tell people that I try not to make dramatic changes from week to week, and I try to just do little tweaks. But if you watch my videos from, like, say now and go back a year and go back a year and go back a year, you'll see gigantic changes. And a lot of it has to do with the lighting, for instance. So if you watch any of my videos that I shot in the last 2 days, you'll discover I put a brand new light down here, because this light used to be yellow or more gold colored, and it bothered me. And I finally ordered another light to match the other ones in the room. So all 5 lights, yes, there are 5 lights right now in the vicinity of me, including one behind the cabinet to try to kill the shadows off the microphones. They're all matching white lights. So that's a change you notice. Probably not, unless I pointed it out to you. So my sister lives in South Dakota. Okay. I'm in Michigan every week, Casey says. Mostly Detroit, delivering furniture. I do Michigan lefts all the time. They're just not so much fun in my semi. Oh, you have no idea. I've driven a big truck a couple times. It takes a whole different mindset to drive a big truck. And I admire guys who do that for a living. They're usually not that comfortable. And also, you know, just maneuvering them in traffic, trying to get them into parking spaces or turn around or whatever, it's got to be a nightmare. So it's got to be a difficult job. I was born overseas. My state requires a birth certificate to get a license. When I was young, 20s, the DMV gal wasn't impressed with my attempt to use my original Greek certificate, Matt. That's a good point. And I can tell you right now, I had an occasion, which I won't get into right now, but some people can figure this out, where I had to get some legal documents from another country to use them in the United States. And these were my legal documents. And I had copies of my own that I got at the time. And when I needed them later in America and I had to file certified copies, well, if you get certified copies from a court clerk, for instance, I can get certified copies from the Oakland County Circuit Court clerk, who can certify a document as being authentic, and they put a stamp on it, a seal, and possibly it's a bunch of ceremonial things. But when you do it from out of the country, depending what country you're doing it from, you've got to get a thing called an apostille. An apostille. And an apostille is a certification from another country that an American court will accept as being authentic. So I suspect that if you needed the birth certificate from Greece, you'd need to get the apostille done on it, and it costs a lot to get it done, and it's a hassle and it takes time. So if you need this thing timely, you got to plan way ahead to get the apostille work done. And it's I've only had to do it once. So like I said, if the microphone is too hot right now, the gain of the mic, the best I can do is lean back and lower my voice, because it has a volume adjuster, and I've got it all the way to the left. Literally, I think one more will shut it off. So it might just be that it's too hot from the factory. I don't know, but I know it's getting closer because I've listened to the sound on each of the previous videos. So, hey Steve, I want to hear your opinion on a man getting married. Would you recommend getting married? Oh, you mean just getting married in general? You know, somebody asked me previously if I am married, and I pointed out that I'm not wearing a ring. So the answer, of course, is no, I'm not married, and I've been married twice. And the whole point about getting married is it's one of those things where it's I don't think it's something for everyone, but it's something for a lot of people. But you have to understand that in our society, marriage is both a religious thing, but it's also a legal thing. And it might not be a religious thing in the sense of if you're not religious, you can have a civil ceremony. But there's a ceremonial thing, a ceremonial aspect. Let's call it that. A ceremonial aspect to it, and there's a legal aspect to it. So you can get married in a church by a preacher, pastor, priest, rabbi, whatever it is. You can get married there. But the divorce ain't going to take place there. The divorce is going to happen in a court. And I'm simply, as a lawyer, talking about all the possibilities when you're getting married. And mathematically, the odds are somebody in the audience right now who's not married, if they get married, there's a chance they're going to get divorced. About a 50-50 chance, I think. So you have to just keep that in mind. But a lot of the things they used to say about how, men always get screwed in divorces is not as bad as it was decades ago. That's getting better. The bigger issues arise with child support and visitation, and it depends on how much the parents fight when they have kids and they get divorced. That can get ugly. So, I can't tell you whether you ought to get married or not, but you have to understand that, like I said, there's a ceremonial aspect to it and a legal aspect to it, and who knows how it's going to work out. So, Silver's pointing out there's a pregnant pause there. There may have been. See, when I'm shooting videos, I know I'm going to edit them later. And Craig says he's in White Lake, Michigan. I drive by there all the time, my friend. When I'm editing a video, I know I can remove stuff if I make a mistake, or if I swear, I can remove it. I can tell you about 6 months ago, I was shooting a video and I made a mistake, and I said, okay, I'm going to stop. I got up and I hit start again, sat back down again. Shooting the video, made the exact same mistake a second time. And I'm like, getting frustrated. So I get up, stop, start, walk back. And now I tell myself, I'm going to do the video. I don't care. And if I have to, I'll just edit out any mistakes. Made it to the third place, exact same spot in the video, and swore. And I swore up a blue streak. Just foul obscenities that normally would never leave my mouth. But I'm taping. I'm fine, right? So I take the video, when I'm done with the video, out, and I'm editing it, and I remove all the obscenities very, very cleanly. You couldn't even tell I made the cut, okay? It was that good of an edit. And I posted that on YouTube. And then I took the audio off of my card, forgot about the obscenities, and uploaded it to the podcast on iTunes. And one of my longest term listeners, somebody who subscribed years ago and has sent me emails about podcasts and so on, has told me, he goes, Steve, I don't like the videos. I listen in my car. I listen on iTunes. I love your podcast. And he sends me a note. He goes, hey, Steve, he goes, I think you may have missed an edit. And I'm like, oh my God. I did. And I had to very quickly pull the audio down slice it out, and re-upload it. I sent him a note and I said, thank you so much. I can't believe I did that. I don't want to get in trouble with iTunes posting obscene audio. And he goes, Steve, he goes, it's kind of funny. He goes, because on the one hand, he goes, I realized what happened. I know exactly what happened. And he goes, and I completely empathize with you. I almost didn't tell you. And then I realized you probably wanted to know. So somebody else would have told me, but he was the only person who got me a note, and I managed to pull it down and put it back up again. Not too many people had heard it. So, but yeah, if there's a pregnant pause here, it's only because I'm thinking to myself, okay, I may need to edit in advance of what I say. So, have I ever considered swapping the $100 bill for $52 bills? You know, I almost could. I had a $2 bill out here one day joking. I said, yeah, that's the interest on the $100 bill. And by the way, even today, I got somebody sent me a note and said, Steve, I think I have an answer for you. And they didn't. But the point is, for those of you who are curious, a $100 bill here is part of a challenge for people who say that they don't need a driver's license because the Supreme Court said so. I say, show me where the Supreme Court said that, and I'll give you the $100 bill. No one's got even close. So, the judge just assumed my ex had custody, but 8 years ago, things hadn't changed. He was planning to make me pay child support until I corrected him. James. Yeah, James, you know what's interesting? And one of the things that I'll tell you right now, and I have a lot of sympathy for anybody who's gone through a court system and has seen the ugliness that it can create in the family law setting, divorces, child support, child custody, things of that nature. And when I talk to people who have hatred towards the legal system, 9 times out of 10, that's where it came from. And it often comes from the fact that judges are trying to resolve something. And I have people say, but Steve, the judge was biased against me, or the judge was biased against both of us. And it's one of those weird things because courts can't fix the problems that arise. All the courts can do is say, well, here's the visitation works, here's how much child support you pay, here's who pays what. And I did a video on the divorce case from hell, where there's a couple in Michigan who've gone through, countless court hearings, countless attorneys, and it's gotten insane to where it's clear that the court can't help these people. Psychiatrists couldn't help these people. It's insanity. And yet the court has to, because that's their job. So, if you get yourself in front of a judge who's not sympathetic, I don't know what to tell you. I've had those in cases of mine that were not involving things as emotional as family issues or child visitation. And I've heard good stories about judges who actually take the time to get to know the parties and understand the case. Sometimes the judges haven't got the time. And I'll be honest, there's judges out there who just don't put the time in either. But if you saw the caseloads of some of these judges, you'd realize, there's a reason they only gave you 10 minutes for your hearing. Because if they gave you 15 and gave everyone else 15, then they wouldn't have time to get to all their stuff. So it's unfortunate. The judges can be overworked. But if they come across that they don't care, then that's a major problem. Ghost Rider says, I can swear on here. I probably could to some extent, but I won't. I don't have this marked as being adult only or age restricted. And I always like to think that when I'm live, it's as if I'm on the radio. So I did say HELL a couple seconds ago, but that's pretty much the limitations of my profanity when I'm in front of what I think is a live mic. Krager says that's another reason not to get married, and I know guys who say that, So, Kathy says aloha. If you're checking in from Hawaii, aloha back to you. I'm guessing it's kind of early there in the morning, but glad you can get up and spend your time with us. So, are you licensed to practice in any other states besides Michigan? What is the process for getting licensed in multiple jurisdictions? James, no, I'm only licensed in Michigan. I'm licensed in state court and federal court, which is a slightly different thing. But outside of Michigan, I'm not licensed. To get licensed into other states depends on the state. In some states, to get licensed, you actually have to take their bar exam and pass it. So California is one, Florida is another, I believe New York also. But on the other hand, if I wanted to get licensed to practice law in Ohio and Michigan have what's called reciprocity. And so if I'm licensed and in good standing in Michigan, I can apply to get into Ohio, and then they will take a look at me, go through the application process, and if they deem that I'm likely to not screw anything up too badly, they might let me in and I can become a member of their bar, which means I get to pay their bar dues every year as well as my own bar dues in Michigan. I've never seen any value in getting licensed in another state. I don't have any plans on practicing in another state, but I know people who are. I have a couple of very good friends who are licensed in both Michigan and Florida, and they travel back and forth. And I've got friends who are licensed in Michigan and California, and both of those situations required my friends to go sit for the bar exams in those other states. And the California bar exam is a nightmare. And I talked about that with some other attorneys. In fact, I did the video where I interviewed Mark Romano and Steve Stancroft about lemon law in other states, and they are licensed in California. And they were describing the California bar exam, and I know people who took it, because I went to law school in California, but it can be outlandishly difficult. So family court is more like a medieval rack. Pretty much for everyone involved, too. Grand Haven, Michigan. Also an OU Pioneer alum, Jim. Grand Haven's over here, although it's along the coast here, the west coast of Michigan. And OU is Oakland University, where I did my undergraduate work. And he refers to us as the Pioneers. That's the old school mascot. A couple of years ago, they changed it to the Grizzlies because a lot of colleges want to have mascots that they can sell more merchandise for. And the logo for the Pioneers was a stylized sail of like a sailboat or a schooner. And they realized that no one knew what it was. And I think they had somebody at the games running around in a costume. He was dressed like a pioneer, which is not as fun as a Wolverine or a Badger or a Buckeye or a Grizzly. So the Oakland University Grizzlies are now what they're called, and of course we do not have grizzly bears in Michigan, so it makes no sense. So, but that's an old school guy who refers to OU as the Pioneers, because that's when I went there, we were in fact the Pioneers. Have you ever heard of a ticket getting thrown out because an officer's radar gun is out of calibration? Yes, I have, but it's very unusual. Because if you challenge that, they can usually come up with the paperwork to show that they've calibrated it, and they do a lot of this stuff as a routine. The same is true with the breathalyzers, not the handheld portable ones at the roadside, but the one they use back at the police station has got to be calibrated every so often. And I used to defend drunk driving cases years ago, and if you asked in discovery to see the documentation for the calibration on the breathalyzer, they'd produce it for you and say, yes, the machine was calibrated, your guy blew this, and then we calibrated it again, and we have the proof to show it was in calibration both before and after. So it depends on how much work they're willing to put into that. Somebody asked me a while back about getting a ticket from a cop because he'd been paced by an airplane. And you'll often see signs saying that, our speed limits are enforced by airplane. There could be an eye in the sky. And of course, what they're doing at that point is they're marking spots on the pavement and timing you with a stopwatch as you cross over those points. I believe that's one way they do it. And I've had people say, can they do that? Because the cop on the ground writes the ticket, but the guy up in the airplane doesn't write me a ticket. And I'll have you know that in some states, you can challenge the ticket and say, I want both officers, or at least I want the one who knows what he's talking about, at the hearing. But if he shows up, guess what? He's going to say, I'm trained to do this. I got a stopwatch. I saw exactly how the margin of errors plus this or this, and we wrote it for the low end of the margin of error, so you're done. So, but I've never actually fought a ticket myself or even had somebody call me the ticket that was written by a airplane car police team. So Texas since 1836 says, hey, caught another live stream. Yes, you did, my friend. And this is, of course, number 3. And it's live and dangerous, as I pointed out. And I was wondering if anybody's going to catch the fact that that's a reference to a Tin Lizzy or a Thin Lizzy album. And, of course, it is, in fact, Thin Lizzy, and somebody spotted it immediately. So the collective knowledge of this audience is astounding. Chevy says they do that in Maryland, and they have for decades. The airplane cops. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it makes it so it's kind of hard to avoid or evade, depending on which word you use. How about a bigger bookshelf? Greg Stiles. I've got bookshelves around here. I've got another one right here that matches this one, and I've got two more over there. I got one in the other room. This bookshelf was made by my brother, who's a woodworker, handmade, and I had to make it to specifications. I specifically wanted to be able to fit knickknacks into it and have several shelves. But I guess I probably could have gone out to here, right? But the problem is, you may guess, if you spot directly above my head, there's a seam, there's a corner, and it's set in the corner. I'm not sure if I can get anything in there without bringing it out, in which case I run into problems in the room, and it's another story altogether. So this is all basically a big, it's like a Rubik's Cube in here. If I move one thing, it throws everything else out of kilter. So, yeah, JP points out it's getting fairly expensive to do the air speed control because of expenses. And I have to imagine, putting an airplane in the sky and tying up a police officer for that length of time and just keeping the airplanes flying would cost more than it's probably worth. It's much easier just to have a guy sitting there with a radar gun just, popping people off all day long. Chick Conklin was the dude in the Pioneer suit. Was there actually a guy running around in a Pioneer suit at Oakland U games? By the way, Oakland University, when I went there, I don't even know what division we were considered, but they have a basketball team that's actually pretty good. Not they don't have a football team; they're too small of a school. But they had a basketball team, and then one year they actually got at the point where they were considered to be, I don't know if they're Division I or not, but they actually managed to book some games against some big schools. And Michigan State University, which of course is a basketball powerhouse, agreed to come to Oakland U and play a game in a building that seats like 1,000 people. And they got slaughtered. Oakland U did, but it was nice to see Michigan State show up. So Craig is not complaining, he's pointing out that I'm complaining about the problems that YouTubers have got, including, I'm assuming you're talking about my shelf. Unless you want me to talk about the problems that YouTubers have, I could talk about those too. I'll throw one out there for you. It's kind of funny. Oh, by the way, Jeopardy 4100 points at the Flivvers, the Nimrods, and the Red Devils. Oh my! The Flivvers and the Nimrods are both mascots of high school teams here in Michigan. I believe they're both in the Upper Peninsula. And Nimrod, of course, was a biblical character, and a flivver was a nickname for a car. So back in the days when cars were cool, they actually called their team the Flivvers in honor thereof, and it's stuck. They still call them that. But one of the things that people ask me from time to time to give you some insights about YouTube and guys like me who put up YouTube content. And one of the things I'm sure you notice is there's now commercials on my channel, and occasionally there aren't, meaning that a video I put up was deemed not commercially friendly. And what happens is you put a video up, and there's other people who put videos up entirely about this. I'm not going to complain. I'm merely explaining this. So I put up a video, and I click the button saying, yeah, go ahead and monetize it if you want, YouTube. And it goes up, and ads start showing. And somewhere down the line, an hour or two later, I'll be looking at my creator screen, and I'll see that the little green indicator next to the video has turned yellow. And it says not suitable for monetization. And so they don't tell you why. They don't even tell you they did it. It just changes the color of the symbol. But you can go into the control panel and pull up that video and say, I want to appeal this. And you click the appeal button. And then 6 to 10 hours later, it very quietly goes back to green. And then you get an email saying, we've reviewed your video. We determined it is appropriate for advertisers. And I have had, I believe now, 8 videos that were demonetized by YouTube, and 7 of them were re-monetized. One of them, they still left it and said, we're sorry, but we cannot do this. And the strange part is that it's not as predictable as you would think. And unfortunately, if you mention certain kinds of crimes, I believe there's a program that simply sifts through the words in a video. And if it hears certain words, it flags it, and then it takes a human to look at it and go, okay, he's talking about a news story here. He's not actually advocating anybody go out and break the law. So Craig says he pays to not see those commercials. Yeah, I apologize. I know people who don't like watching the commercials, but I've not put up non-skippable commercials, and I've not put commercials in the videos because even I don't like those, so I won't put those in. But if there's a video at the front end, I hope you don't mind. If you don't like it, you can click it and get off as quickly as you can. But it's one of the reasons I put up so many videos is that I have the time to do it, and it's worth my time to do it. So it's a fun thing to do. Yeah, Bill McMahon points out that or he asks, was a Flivver a Model T? I believe it was. If it wasn't a Model T, it was a Model A, but it was one of the early Fords was the Flivver. Yeah, Roxon points out a lot of YouTubers are complaining about that. And I wonder how many of them know they can appeal that. Because I saw a guy, and I forgot who it was, but I saw a guy who put up a video complaining about the demonetization of his videos, and it was not clear that he understood he could appeal it. So, did I ever do an episode about grand juries? I don't think I've done an episode specifically about grand juries in general. I might do that. I will put that on the list of things to talk about. Ghostwriter says, I get that a lot when I demonetize my videos. I record crime scenes. That's interesting. I'll have to check that out because I can imagine if you speak about the crimes that took place at the crime scene, if you use the right keywords, they're going to flag you. The question, Ghostwriter, I'm asking you specifically is, have you appealed those, and have any of them been remonetized as a result of your appeal? That'd be an interesting question. I'd like to know the answer. Hey, Steve, how are you? Adam Gallagher, thanks for asking. I'm doing fine. That's why I'm here. And for those of you who missed the first half of the episode today, I'm running the Free Press Marathon tomorrow. That's my runner's number. Free Press Marathon gun time is about 7 a.m. I'm planning on finishing right around noon. I don't run fast. I just try to run. So I couldn't do the live feed tomorrow. So today we're doing it on a Saturday. I apologize to those of you who are missing college football, but you're going to miss some football one way or the other. Next week, we'll try to return to the Sunday live feeds unless there's some cataclysmic event that says we should do it on a Saturday. You do so many videos. Do you still practice law? Dave Cohen. Yes, I do. And I shouldn't tell you the secret to this. I do 2 videos a day, and there's very little editing in my videos, meaning that I often will come in here, hit record, walk around, talk for 8 minutes, get up, walk around back, hit stop, carry it to my computer, stick it in, and render it. So an 8-minute video takes about 15 minutes to make. So if I do 2 videos, half hour, maybe an hour. So I've still got 23 other hours in a day to practice law, sleep, watch TV, go running, go biking, water rowing, or what have you. But the videos don't take so much time that they keep me from practicing law. So yes, I do still practice law. And by the way, I also still do write a lot of stuff as well. I don't have a book out right now. It's been a little while since my last book came out, but I am working on a couple other writing projects. So we'll do that. Jim Adams, how long will it take you to recover totally from the marathon? About 48 hours for the most part. In the old days, it took longer, but your body actually gets good at things like recovering. So the day of the marathon, I'll be exhausted, absolutely destroyed. Come home, do nothing but guzzle fluids, and then a couple hours later, I'll get hungry, I'll eat, and then I'll sleep like a dead man. The next morning, I'll wake up, and when I first get up and start moving around, I'll have a lot of soreness, a lot of the lactic acid and so on. Once it gets out of my system, though, I guess 48 hours later, nothing, zero, nothing wrong with me. Unless I get blisters, if I get a blister on a foot, for instance, or once in a while you can get blisters if something's rubbing in your shirt or your jacket. It's supposed to be very cold tomorrow, probably about 45 degrees at the start, 60 at the finish. So I'll be wearing shorts and probably a long sleeve coat that I can pull the sleeves up on, maybe some gloves. And the trick is to be warm enough at the start to where you can warm up in the race, but not overheat during the race, because no matter what, you're going to sweat. So fluids and temperature control is the key. So Casey Menke, Steve, what would you say to a 26-year-old thinking of changing careers for family and giving up trucking and becoming an attorney, asking for a friend? Hey, I went to law school at 27, okay? So the idea of going to law school in your 20s is not crazy. I had people in my law school class who were in their 30s, and there was one woman, I believe, in her 60s or 70s. So do what you enjoy. And if you don't like the job you have now, there's nothing wrong with thinking, how do I get into a job I might like? And if you can get yourself through law school, there's a bunch of different stuff you can do with a law degree. You know, I practice consumer protection and lemon law. I know guys who do criminal law. My friend Paul Applebaum in Minnesota, I mentioned him last week, the guy who got that 900 pounds of marijuana suppressed. He does nothing but criminal law. And I know people who do nothing but contract negotiations and transactional stuff in the business world. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of different things you can do. It's intellectually interesting. So that's not a bad idea, especially in your 20s. Like I said, I went to law school when I was 27, graduated when I was 29. So, nope. Yeah, that's right. Graduated when I was 29. So I did the math right. So, do you ever practice in the Eastern District of Michigan, Adam? It's been a little while since I practiced in federal court. Eastern District of Michigan is a reference to federal court in Michigan. All states have got state courts, and they've got the federal courts that overlap the same area but cover different legal concepts. And the last case I had in the Eastern District was, I hate to admit this, it was an RV case. And the RV manufacturer bumped it into federal court because they thought they'd get a better shake there. But I don't do a lot of federal stuff, so most of my cases are in state court. I currently have a case in the Western District right now, but again, it's a very, very unusual case. So I'm guessing 99.5, 99.8% of my practice is in state court. So do I feel lonely? Not when I've got 340 people in a live feed on YouTube chatting with me, showing me the love. So right now, no, I'm not. So, hey, Steve, I'm envious of you as a fellow car guy. One of the things I would like to do is see Jay Leno's garage and hang out for a bit. I always enjoy your videos. Keep it up. Barbecue 76. Thank you. Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny. I jokingly tell people that I've got one of the greatest jobs on earth because my work has gotten me not just into Jay Leno's garage, where he let me drive his turbine car, but I've also gotten to drive Bobby Isaac's Dodge Daytona. I have gotten a ride in Richard Petty's Superbird. I got to interview Richard Petty himself. I've interviewed David Pearson. I've interviewed Ned Jarrett and met him a couple times. I've got to interview a whole raft of people in the auto industry. And it's a lot of fun when you actually stop yourself and say, wait a second. In a roundabout way, I'm getting paid to sit down and talk to Richard Petty. Your work can't get much better than that. So, what are you going to do, you know? So come to Talladega. Donald, I've been there a couple times. I've been to Talladega a couple times, went there for car shows. Talladega, of course, is one of the super speedways that NASCAR races on. And it was at Talladega where the first cars to do 200 miles per hour in a closed course, stock bodied and recognized by NASCAR. That happened, and of course, it was a Dodge Charger Daytona. Not that one, but one driven by Buddy Baker, who was another guy I got to interview while working on all my various projects. And then Bobby Isaac brought his car to Talladega and did a 201 just because they wanted to break 200. So how can I buy a signed copy of your books? Jim, email me, lehto@kenan.com or steve@lehtoslaw.com, either one. The email address is at the end of every single video of mine. And I've got most of my books in stock, not all of them, but I got most of them. And I can work it out with you where I can send you an invoice through Square, and I can sign the books however you want. I've had people ask me if I can sign books for their friends. I've done that as well. I'm going to tell a story right now. I have to tell you this. Here's the thing. I've had people mail me a lot of cool stuff because I have a P.O. box at the end of my videos. They say, I like getting mail. About a month ago, a guy emailed me and he said, Steve, my father-in-law is a retired gentleman who loves your show. Is there any chance if I send you a birthday card addressed to him that you can sign it and send it to him? And I said, absolutely. 2 days later, in my mailbox is a big envelope. I open it up. Inside is a smaller envelope addressed to a guy with inside it a birthday card. And so I open the birthday card up and I write, hey, friend of mine told me it's your birthday. Congratulations. I understand that you watch my channel. Thank you very much. I hope you find it interesting and entertaining. And I wish you the best of luck. And I personalized the card to the guy and I signed it. And I pulled a business card out and stuck it in there just for fun. Just, my business card, my business card's got a logo on it, which let's see if we can do that with that. There we go. My business card's got a logo on it, which I think is kind of cool. So I stuck the business card in there so he knew that this is me. Sealed it, stamped it, stuck it in the mail, and sent it off to the guy. And I got a phone call yesterday at my office. And it was the guy who sent me the card. He goes, hey, Steve, I'm just curious, did you get the card? He was worried it didn't put in a postage on it or something like that. And I go, yes. And I just told him the story I just told you. He's like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm like, it's not that hard. I signed a little, thing. I mean, I was happy to do it. I'm glad there's people watching my channel, watching my videos and enjoying them. So, took me 30 seconds. And if it was that fun for the guy, happy to do it. So if you got questions, fire them here, fire them below videos, or at the end of every video is all my contact information. Feel free to contact me there, and I'll do what I can to help you out. So if you're interested in books, just shoot me a note. We'll work it out. Brian Christensen, what a great thing to do. Hey, you're welcome. Jeopardy 4100 points out this is, in fact, the Finnish lion, and he says, great. And yes, that is a Finnish lion, very similar to the one that's on the jerseys of the Finnish national hockey team. So whenever I'm in the watching the Olympics, I'm in the Olympic mood, Winter Olympics, I hate to tell you this, I root for Finland, unless, of course, they're not playing. So when Finland plays the U.S., I have to root for Finland. But, doesn't make me un-American. So, Steve, your biz card logo is better than your channel logo. It is. I'll grant you that. Because there's the business card logo, right? And then, of course, here's the channel logo. But I have to tell you that the channel logo is something I own the copyright to. The biz card logo being the affiliated with the national hockey team of Finland is not something I could put on stuff. Like I couldn't put it on shirts or bumper stickers or things like that. So I got the logo made, and by the way, there are some people who did not catch this, but the logo includes a Finnish flag in the shape of this microphone. And so a good friend of mine is a graphic artist. Her name is Jane Chaika, and she's done stuff for me before, drawn things for me before. And I said I would like a logo for my channel, and she goes, well, what do you want it to? And I said, use your imagination. But I said, I wanted to include any of these possible ideas, but I know you can't work them all together. But if you can work in Finland, that's great. If you work on a microphone, that's great. If you work in the name Lehto's Law, that's great. And she goes, let me see what I can come up with. And she came up with this right here. And I'm like, boom, we're done. We're done. So I love the logo. But like I said, I also do like the Finnish battle flag lion, which is what that is. So in racing, they say if you want to win, employ a Finn. And, there's a bunch of good Finnish drivers, especially in Formula One. And I always get them confused. There was a J.J. Lehto, no relation to me. Maybe Mika Hakkinen. But I remember the very funny exchange a few years ago, and you can Google this, where somebody picked up the radio communication between him and his pit. And towards the end of the race, his pit was giving him instructions. And at one point, he had to stop and say, leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. So leave me alone. So what made you decide to drive the older Explorer as a daily driver, Jacob? Actually, I drive them both right now. I have a 2002 Ford Explorer and a 2019 Ford Explorer, and the 2002 still runs like a charm. It's like a Swiss watch. It's going to run forever. So I drive it. There are a couple places I drive where I can get there faster by going down dirt roads. So I take the O2 down the dirt roads, and I take the new one longer trips, especially if the satellite radio will help me out, and so on. I actually just rolled the new Explorer over to 8,000 miles last week. So it has literally just 8,000 miles on it. I've had it for, I don't know, 5-6 months now. So we are approaching the top of the hour, as we say in radio, but I got no place to go. And if you guys can hang around, we can stick around as well. I see we got 350 some odd people online. So we'll stick around for a little bit longer. We won't just stop at the hour. We'll go for an hour and a half or so. My grandmother came from Finland, Jeff. That's interesting because all of my great-grandparents came from Finland, all 8 of them. So there was a time between like 1880 and 1900-ish where a lot of Finns came to America. They had financial troubles over there. They had problems with Russia over there. In fact, Finland was not independent of Russia until 1917, I believe it was. So there was several waves of Finns that came over. My family came over in those waves, and somehow they all got together, and boom, 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 and here I am. So in my family, no matter which way you go up the family tree, it's all Finnish names all the way across. Some of them are almost unpronounceable by me because I don't speak Finnish. Samana wants to know, do I have any sports cars? No, I do not. I've jokingly said if I were to buy a sports car, I'd probably get myself a Viper. We'll see about that in a year or two, maybe. So, but no, I haven't had I had a 69 Dodge Charger, similar to that one right there, that model back in high school, but that's not a sports car. It's just a big block with posi traction, or the Chrysler equivalent, and it would smoke its tires all day long if I was inclined to do that. So, do I have channel moderators? You know, sometimes I do. Today I don't, and I apologize because I saw a whole bunch of garbage go by a second ago. I do have a moderator, but unfortunately couldn't work it out today due to the scheduling conflict. So, don't forget time and temp at the top of the hour. You dummy. And thank you for pointing it out, because most radio stations have rules on how often you get the time and the temp, and also title and artist of songs. And so they also will sometimes say you have to give the time digitally. And of course, there's the places where they say you got to give it both ways. So you'd say, hey, it's 2:02, 2 minutes after 2 o'clock, as opposed to it's 2:02. And of course, temp. So I'd say, hey, it's 2:02, 2 minutes after 2 o'clock, 57 degrees here in Flint, Michigan, or wherever I'd be broadcasting at the time. And of course, at the top of the hour, you have to give the station ID as close to the top as you can get it, which is normally the call letters and the city of license. You can often put words in between somewhat, but you're not supposed to separate them by too much. So when I worked at CK105, the top of the hour caller, not caller, but the top of the hour station ID was WWCK FM AM Flint. And you'd start that by going CK105 is. So top of the hour ID would look something like CK105 is WWCK FM AM Flint. It's 2:02. I'm Steve Lehto. In this hour, we're going to have Bon Jovi, Guns N' Roses, Cyndi Lauper, and the latest from Pajama Party. And then boom, there'd be the logo, CK105, and then first song. So that's what the top of the hour ID would look like from a radio broadcaster's viewpoint. All the elements are laid out for you. Victor, how can you not like a Viper? It's a V10, which makes it unusual and powerful. It's American made. It's a manual only, and it's a cool looking car that's got roots with Carroll Shelby. How could you not like a Viper? In fact, I'm gonna let that one go. William Burnett says, I just bought a 1983 AM General 939 5-ton truck. You, sir, are an American hero. I used to have an M35A2 deuce and a half, which is a 2.5-ton truck, the little brother to that truck. That right there, the 5-ton, is big. That's a big, big truck. Now, 2.5-ton truck's pretty big too, until you compare it to other military vehicles. But I used to drive mine around town, and it would barely fit in my garage. But it was a lot of fun to have. I don't have it anymore. I kind of wish I do, but you know. If you did trick out your Explorers, what would you install? Oh, I don't trick out my vehicles. I don't tend to like all the stuff people put in their vehicles to pretty them up these days. Spinners, you know. I suppose maybe a winch and some better lights for off-road, but I got news for you. I'm not taking that that new Explorer mine anywhere off-road where a winch would come in handy. But I suppose I'd look more practical things like that. So, yeah. How do you feel about the old cars being rentals, like a Charge or a Challenger? Being remade. I'm sorry. That's what I get for not reading carefully. It's kind of interesting. I actually like some of the callback cars that they've done. Chrysler, Dodge done FCA has done a very good job. I like the modern Challenger, the modern Charger. I think they've done a very good job with those cars. So I got no problem with them remaking those. Some of the newer ones, the new Camaros, I don't care for as much, but it depends. I really admire the fact that the car companies now are bringing out muscle cars again. There was a period of time in the late 70s, early 80s, we just assumed we'd never see another muscle car again, simply because they were making engines smaller and smaller. They're smogging them down. Horsepowers were dropping, and the car designs are getting ugly. So the fact that they are returning to that somewhat is pretty cool in my mind. But ironically, now that they're making the cars that are cool, they're getting hard to afford again. So, can you give an update on Evil Judge? Matt Curley. Yeah, there's the bad judge, Brennan, in Brighton, Michigan. And she's actually she's up on criminal charges right now. So I'm not going to do a final video about her until she actually goes through the legal process and has a resolution to her case, if you know what I mean. I personally hope she gets convicted because she was the worst judge I was ever in front of. But what I saw of her myself in the courtroom wasn't illegal. It was just horribly, horribly, horribly inappropriate. And I had some people comment in those videos. They said, Steve, if you were in front of her and she was this bad and you didn't do anything about it, you're part of the problem. And the problem is that if a judge is simply rude, disrespectful, and things like that's not against the law. And I heard stories about her doing things that were beyond the pale that were reported about her. And good enough, some of those things were reported. And then, of course, she got busted for some other stuff. So I think there's a good chance she's going away. But at the very least, she's off the bench. So as a decent result there, hopefully it's going to become a better result when she gets found guilty by a jury of her peers, if, in fact, she does get found guilty. But there's no place for people like that on the bench. The funny thing is that they appointed a replacement for her who's an attorney that I also know is a great guy. So the good news is that bad judge gone, good judge now. So I don't know if I'll have any opportunities to be in front of him anytime soon, but if he does, I will get in front of him as soon as I can. Tim in Texas, hey, Steve, almost missed it. Yeah, we're going to stick around for a little bit longer, even though it's now past 2 o'clock. We started at 1 o'clock, but we'll make it to 2:30 or so. We got 366 people in the room. I would like to see more than 500, but I don't know if that will happen. What are my thoughts on First Amendment auditors? I've seen videos of First Amendment auditors who go out and cause trouble on film, and they go, "Look, I caused trouble, and they harassed me." And there's a fine line between me pulling out a camera and filming a news event in public and saying I've got a right to film that. But when I take a camera and walk into a city county building and walk up to a woman who's working at her desk and stick a camera in her face and go, "Look, I'm auditing you," and she goes, "I got work to do. Do you need help?" "No, I'm auditing you." And they go, "Okay, if you don't leave, we're going to have you arrested for trespassing." And they hold the guy out and he's screaming, yelling about the First Amendment. It's like, what exactly was he auditing and putting the camera in the face of a clerk who's trying to work? Like, I don't get that. And I mean, I do get that. I know what's happening. The guy wants to be on YouTube and he wants to get a lot of clicks. But I don't have sympathy for some of those people. Other ones I do. And I agree that if there's something happening over here on this side of the street and the police are involved, if I'm standing over here with a camera, I should be allowed to film that. It's a news event. And as long as I'm not interfering, I should be allowed to film that. So I agree with that sense of the First Amendment auditors. So the Hellcat Charger is roomy. Yeah, I've actually never driven one. I've sat in a couple. I've ridden in a couple, but they're very, very cool cars. And and someone's complaining about their messages being deleted. And I got news for you. I've got no filters on this, unfortunately, and I'm not deleting anything because my mouse is right here, but I haven't touched it the entire time except just to show it to you now, and nothing's been deleted. So if you're typing things that are obscene, maybe they're being deleted. I don't know, but other than that, I can't tell you. I can tell you right now that I have people who post things on my videos and then say things like, Steve, I posted a comment and you deleted it. And I'm no, I didn't. And so I had people actually tell me they posted something in the wrong spot and came back later and go, oh, it was actually there. I thought it was over here. So I'm fairly tolerant. And as of right now, like Lisa Hill says, they disappear instantly. Well, that one didn't. So Beaker says YouTube still has filters. It might. And so there's something, that doesn't go through their filters. I can't help you. So, do I like the new wide body Charger Challengers? Yeah, I do. I do like those. Those particular cars are among my favorite body styles. But I can tell you right now, I've got a lot of clients who call me with electrical problems and other technical computer type issues with those cars. I would never buy one myself. So, Lisa Hill says, not obscene. I'm asking about the suitcase murderer. I'm not sure which suitcase murderer you're talking about. There's a few of them. There was the kids overseas. And there's also a guy here in America, but I need to know more facts. What do you think about the Tesla fires? Yeah, it's interesting. There have been some stories about Teslas that have caught on fire and how difficult it is to extinguish the battery packs on those cars once they catch on fire because the chemical reaction causes a fire. It's extremely difficult to extinguish if it can be extinguished at all, and most fire departments aren't equipped or trained to extinguish them. It's a fairly unusual occurrence, but I can tell you that I've not had many calls regarding Tesla automobiles in general. But of course, they're a very, very small part of the market right now. So another friend of mine who's an attorney, I talked to him last week, said he just got his first Tesla buyback here in Michigan. So they are going to happen as they get more market share. But, we'll see. How manufacturers handle lemon law claims is, of course, a decision made at the corporate level. And I can tell you that big car companies often will change their minds as a business matter. And one year you'll hear that, General Motors is doing this with buybacks, and then the next year they'll change their mind, they'll do something else entirely different with their buybacks. So, who knows? But as of right now, I've not had many calls involving Teslas that looked like they were about to become lemons. So, former Waterford resident here. He's now in Lexington, Kentucky. Big Homer Bob. Yeah, Waterford, very familiar with that also. In fact, for many years, I drove through Waterford on my commute up and down Dixie Highway. So, Jeopardy points out that the Tesla fires are dangerous for firemen. And that, of course, is, like I said, it's a chemical fire because of the chemical composition of the batteries. And once they start burning, they're extremely difficult, like I said, from what I've heard. But, so. Teslas are quite popular in Denmark. Yeah, and I understand that Elon just built a plant in China. And I suspect they'll be popular in China also. So I've pointed out before, people ask me about, how do I feel about Elon Musk? And, he's an eccentric, to put it mildly. But I compare him to Preston Tucker. Because Tucker tried to start a car company and got the plant and started building cars. He built 50 cars and got put out of business by the government. Elon Musk, of course, built a plant, started building cars, and has had issues with the government. But the big difference is that Elon Musk is better financed than Tucker was. So I think Elon Musk has a much better shot of succeeding with his car company than Tucker did, even before Tucker ran into his troubles. So let's see here. Steve, really enjoy your vids. This is my third show. Ronald, hey, thanks for checking in. If this is the third live show you've been to, that's even better. I did 2 practice runs earlier, but like I said, those didn't work terribly well. So, by the way, Lisa, she says YouTube wins because she can't post her question. Email it to me. Email me, steve@lehtoselaw.com, and I'll email you back. And if it's something I can talk about with a video, I'll do a video on it. I apologize. So Tucker was way ahead of its time. David H. Yes, it was. And that, of course, is a model of Tucker 48. Of the 51 of those cars that were manufactured by Tucker, his company itself, 47 or 40 of them still exist. And we know where they all are. And they're very, very valuable. I've seen probably half of them. Very, very cool cars. Very interesting. And especially if you compare them to vehicles from 1948, they were space age. Nowadays, they look dated, but it's a 1948 car that looked much better than the other 1948 cars. So, JR Physics, greetings from the Napa Valley. Hey, thanks you could check in. Lee says he's grocery shopping and had a few people stop and watch asking who you are. Just don't bump into anything or fall over on camera to where it's going to be, watch the funny video of the man who falls over watching his phone, and oh, look what he's watching. He's watching that guy on YouTube. It's one of those Mobius strip things, you know. I'll tell you something, because I feel I have to share all of my inner secrets with my YouTube audience, and so I'll tell you something funny. I had an appointment about a month ago in Ann Arbor. I was walking into an office building, and as I walked towards the front of the office building, my phone dinged, and it was a text, and I went and pulled my phone out just as I went to step over a curb, and I didn't pick my foot up. I saw the curb. I knew the curb was there. I picked my foot up, but not high enough, and went bam, right on my face. And my phone went flying. I had a suitcase near him. My briefcase went flying, and I put both my hands down like this, and I scraped the palms of both my hands. In fact, I had the scar. I guess you can't see it anymore, but I had a scar here for a while from that incident. And I know that people inside, the security guard watching the camera, goes, oh, another guy watching his phone when he should be watching the curb. Just boom, right? Broad daylight, dry pavement. Luckily didn't break anything, but, you know, that's what happens. Kathy Paina, who I believe is checking in from Hawaii, says you're fun to watch. Thank you very much. You guys are fun to hang out with as well. My roommate listens when I'm watching your videos. He refers to you as the laughing lawyer. You know, it's kind of funny because I've had people say, Steve, if I'm not misunderstanding this, you're sitting in a room by yourself. There's no cameraman. There's no sound man, obviously. And occasionally you laugh at your own jokes. By definition, they're my jokes because no one else is in here telling me jokes. They go, number one, it's weird if you think about it. But number two, like, is that a sign of like mental illness? But I've also had people say, Steve, I hate it when you laugh because it's weird to me that a lawyer is laughing. And I say, you know, unfortunately, I know lawyers who don't laugh. And I don't like hanging out with them. So if I don't laugh, why would you want to hang out with me? And why does this keep doing this? Like my sleeve keeps popping up on me, but sorry, my OCD is kicking in. But the point is that this is just me. Rather than coming in here and trying to be somebody other than who I am, I decided I'm going to come in here and just be myself, be natural, and it's kind of like, you know, if I make up a story that I got to stick to, it's hard to remember. If I try to be somebody else, it's harder to do. So I'm just going to come in here being me. And so yes. If you worked in my office, you could ask Missy, the secretary who worked with me for the longest period of time. She would tell me that she could walk into the building and she knew I was there because she could hear me laughing down the hallway. Okay. And I would jokingly say, oh, I'm sorry. No, go right ahead. It's fine. I don't care. And so, you know, wouldn't you rather have laughter in the office than, you know, wailing and gnashing of teeth, as they said? So no one likes a sourpuss. And thank you. That's like what I like to do too. So, and Mark says it keeps me genuine. Thank you. So, I like that you can laugh about yourself. That's a great personal trait. Brian, yeah, you know something. You can't take yourself too seriously. You know, I admit it's. I'm sitting in a room by myself, talking to myself. If that's not funny, I don't know what is. So. Rob just says he sent me a story about Craigslist scams. Yeah, send those along. I've gotten a few people who sent those to me, and I enjoy those. And I love variations because I think I've heard them all, and someone will go, "Have you seen this one yet?" And I haven't seen it yet. By the way, in fact, I'm going to do a video on this one. I did one a while back about the one that claims that they've hacked your computer and they got photos of you and doing goofy stuff. There's an update on that one. I'll do a video on that next day or two. So, enjoying your show from Hancock, Michigan. James, are you really? I got family in Hancock. Hancock, Michigan's across the canal from Houghton. And James, thanks for checking in. I don't think you got snow yet, but although I think it did snow a little bit, it didn't stick yet. Hancock, of course, is on the side of a hill. And my family lived up there before I was born. I've got brothers who were born up there. And Hancock, of course, is home to Finlandia University, whose bumper stickers say FU. And it was called Suomi College for years. And my grandfather was the dean of Suomi College. So I love visiting the area. I went through there probably 3 or 4 times this year. I'm up there at least 3 or 4 times a year, sometimes 5 or 6 times a year. I love the summertime in the Keweenaw Peninsula and always spend time in the Houghton Hancock area. It's beautiful. There's a lift bridge that spans the 2 communities. A whole bunch of radio stations up there. I know people at both radio stations, both sides, and Michigan Tech's on the other side of the canal. And so I love that area. Got somebody here who says, I just came out of the woods from archery hunting, saw some buck, but couldn't get shots. Love me some deer meat here in Pennsylvania. Yeah, and archery season starts early. James says, him and his wife are alums of Finlandia. Congratulations on that. I never attended, but I always feel a spiritual connection because like my mom and dad went there. And like I said, my grandfather was a dean. But I know archery season's in right now or on right now or open. What do you want to call it? And archery has got to be a whole different thing compared to firearm season. And I guess my question is, if you are an archer and you are bow hunting, how close do you have to get reasonably to actually have a shot at succeeding with the shot with bow and arrow? I'm curious about that because I've shot a bow and arrow at a range before a couple times. I've also fired a gun a few times, but I've never gone hunting either way. And I don't know anybody who's gone bow hunting in any particular manner. So I'd be curious about that. So Brian says he's got contact with the family in Battle Creek. Battle Creek's another town in Michigan with a funny name. It's over towards Kalamazoo. And Shar says that it depends how strong your bow is, but 40 yards is reasonable. 30 to 40 yards max, Matthew says. So 40 yards. So that means that you actually probably, I assume, have to get a little bit closer than somebody with a 30-06 during firearm season. But again, it's a different skill set, I would assume, to either sneak up on something with your bow and arrow or to figure out where to be to get them to stumble up to you. So Matt Curley says there's CDC warnings about eating deer, venison. You probably want to check that out. And talking about the EEE, people have died. Yeah, EEE is I can't say it. Eastern equine encephalitis. I guess I can't say it. It's a disease that's spread by mosquitoes, and people have actually died of it here in Michigan. I spend a lot of time outdoors, but not like in the deep woods or anything like that. But that's something you spend time outdoors now. You got to watch out for EEE, along with Lyme disease and the ticks and so on. And of course, we've also got a problem here in Michigan with a deer disease that's contagious from deer to deer. And so for the first time this year, they had to put down some severe restrictions on deer baiting because they worry that deer that are attracted to deer bait piles will spread it amongst themselves. I don't know enough about deer behavior or deer disease pathology to know if that's the case or not. I just know that that's what the DNR was saying. So it's a lot of stuff that you have to be aware of if you're a hunter. What do you say to a slow tomato? Ketchup? It's like what you say to the guy who stole your cheese. That's nacho cheese. Let's see here. Bad jokes. West Nile. Yeah, that's the other virus. And then, of course, Buck says he prefers his 45 Black Powder Thompson. I've got a brother who's got a couple firearms, including a muzzle loader. It's a modern muzzle loader, but it had a fairly large projectile. And I fired that a couple times. We were up north at my brother's place, blowing up pumpkins and big jugs of water, just watching stuff explode. And I fired that muzzle loader, and I seem to recall it had quite a bit of a kick to it. So if you want something that kicks, get yourself a big old muzzle loader. Here in southwestern Michigan, do you use off while running? No, but where are you in southwestern Michigan there, Mr. Tube? I don't ever encounter much problems with mosquitoes or anything while I'm running, unless I'm trail running. But I have not done trail running this summer. It's been a couple summers since I did any trail running. But if you're in Michigan checking, and be sure to tell me where specifically in Michigan, because you're not going to stump me. I know all the small towns. In fact, I had a guy contact me last week from Sodus, Michigan. And I said, Sodus, that's just west of Eau Claire. And he said, you know about it? And I said, of course I know about it. So Rob's from Taylor, Michigan. I drove by Taylor the other day, driving across 94, but he lives now in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And, my tube's in New Buffalo. I know where that is. That's southwest of Sodus and Eau Claire. Neat little town down there, New Buffalo. And I like all the interesting city names or town names. J.B. Weld points out that he's got family in Onekama. And Onekama, of course, is Onekama. And you can get stickers that have just a 1 and a comma. Because if you look at Onekama, it looks kind of like one comma, but it's Onekama, or so they tell me. I actually spoke in Onekama about a year ago at the library there. So can I say hi to Addie Rose from Stephen? Sure, why not? It's like the old days in the radio. Can you play a song for my girlfriend, Diane? This is Jack. So my tube, that's about as southwest as it gets. Yes, it is, my friend. So somebody's got a brother who lives in Lapeer. Where's Pawpaw? Pawpaw, likewise, is over towards the western corner of the state. Not quite as far over as Eau Claire, but it's past Battle Creek and Kalamazoo. So those are places in Michigan. So I like all those neat little town names. Pawpaw, in case you're curious, is named after a plant called the pawpaw. It's a fruit that grows in swamps in southwestern Michigan. It probably has a Native American origin. But when I was looking at that, I'm like, where'd that name come from? I looked it up, and there's actually a fruit called the pawpaw that grows on a plant called the pawpaw plant. So there's a place called Pawpaw and school and a courthouse and all that stuff. So Benton Harbor, also Bob on the west side. Iron Mountain, Michigan. Why? There you go. Iron Mountain, Michigan's in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan over on the western side towards Wisconsin. I've got friends in Hurley also, Hurley, Wisconsin, across the border from Iron Mountain. There's also Iron River and, of course, Iron Wood. And so the three irons up there, there's the Iron District. The iron ore is from there or else the Marquette area. And the copper country is the Keweenaw Peninsula for the most part. There's also White Pine a little bit down that direction. Family in Midland. Midland's not small, but yeah, Midland's okay. Midland is part of the Tri-City area, Midland, Bay City, and Saginaw. And, of course, there's the MBS airport up there as well. Great live show, Steve. Thank you very much. Do you still work, or is YouTube your full-time gig now? No, I've got 2.5 full-time gigs. I still practice law. I do YouTube, and I also write and do stuff like that as well. Never try to pop on, neither have I. I simply heard they exist. I never actually saw one in real life. I'm not even sure if anybody ever actually harvests them or grows them. So I don't know what to tell you. UP is great snowmobile country. Yeah, if you have a snowmobile or a sled, as they call it in snow country, go to the Upper Peninsula, because in the wintertime, number one, they've got a lot of snow, and number two, they plow the roads and they keep the shoulders plowed nicely for the snowmobiles. And there's also a lot of trails that connect the various towns. You can travel complete circuit around the Upper Peninsula on trails and roads easily in the wintertime with a snowmobile. So we'll do a few more minutes here because I got some more questions here. Rob says, he goes, I was at a town called Ypsilanti. It was funny. Yeah, it's also a strange spelling. Ypsilanti is Ypsilanti. Ypsilanti. It's the home of Eastern Michigan University, ironically, which is not that far east, but it's near Ann Arbor. But Ypsilanti, is a neat little town as well. Lived at K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base back in 1774. That's in the Upper Peninsula as well. So thank you, Steve. You rounded out my drive back to the yard. Now it's time to hop in the Datsun and go home to the wife and baby. Datsun? Really? Remember the Datsun from the old days. So I am from Indonesia. Are you checking in from Indonesia? If so, what time is it there? What day is it? Oh, Ken goes, what about the bee sting on your mouth? Yeah, I was running about a month and a half ago, and I had a bee hit me in the mouth and stung my lip. But that was not in the backwoods. That was actually, I was running through a subdivision. It was a paved street right in front of a beautiful house, and I don't know what the bee was doing there. I mean, he was just passing through like I was, I guess. So I haven't been stung by anything else running or anything like that in a while. Although I did see the snake, but that was a milk snake. So Iron Mountain to Bark River. EMU, what is their mascot? Well, it is now an eagle. I believe they changed it because they had a Native American name, and I forgot what they called themselves before, but I know they changed it not too long ago. Let's see here. Brian says he really loves Lehto's channel, so informative. Thank you. And so does Mindy. Jack says he's running from a bee and a tree limb stung his head. They'll do that, So let's see here. D says, you mentioned you were married a couple times. Any children? No. That's just one of those things. And I know that's a paradox in today's society. I was married once for 17 years and once for a little shorter. And no children, but, it's just one of those things. I have 5 older brothers. Yeah, Jimbo points out that they were called the Hurons. That is correct. They were called the Hurons. I believe they changed their name to the Eagles there at Eastern Michigan. But I have 5 older brothers, but I never had any siblings below me. And so I was never raised around children, so maybe that plays into it. I don't know, but I have no children. But so wait, Mindy, you had 5 siblings? It's kind of funny. I have another very good friend of mine, Adam Alexander, has 5 older brothers like I do, but he also has an older sister. So he's from a family of 7, but 6 boys, and he is the youngest of 6 boys like I was. So what are the odds? Donald says, can you sue the owner of the tree? Depends. Was the tree negligent? Was the owner negligent? So Jack's 1 of 5. Yeah. So sorry to hear that, Steve. You must be that crushed child of the family, Sam. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was the youngest of 6 boys, but I can assure you that each sibling claims that they had it bad because either they say, well, Steve, you were the baby of the family. Mom and Dad, they babied you. I had 5 older brothers picking on me. But then the brothers in the middle go, but no, I had brothers picking on me from above and below. And then, of course, the oldest brothers go, you guys all got it easy. You were the babies. You were the babies. And we're like, you had it easy because you got to do all kinds of stuff because you were older. So it's perspective. Out of the 6 kids, we all had it equally the same. I don't care what anybody says. So that's my theory. And, of course, Q8 says the joke, no children you know of. Ha! By the way, I saw a female comedian once say that, and it was funny. She walks out and she goes, I'm not married. I've got no kids that I know of. So it's funnier from a female comedian. Mindy says I'm the youngest of her group. So recommend a law book for a casual student of law. A law book? Believe it or not, I'd recommend a book called 1L by Scott Turow. It's an interesting book. Scott Turow later went on and wrote a bunch of books, including Presumed Innocent, other legal thrillers, and he is an attorney. But he wrote a book called 1L about what life was like in his first year of law school at Harvard. And so I remember reading it right before I went to law school, because I didn't get to go to Harvard, so I thought, I'll read about what it was like to go there. But it's actually an interesting book, because the guy writes a book and he tells a story about here's what the first year of law school is like. And it's a memoir. It's nonfiction. It's a very, very cool book. So I'd recommend 1L by Scott Turow. I have a cottage in Montville, Michigan on the St. Joseph River. Now, if that's true, I'm assuming it's on the west side of the state, and I'm drawing a mental blank on Montville, but I've had my canoe in the St. Joe a couple times, and I launched it not far from mental blank, Berrien Springs. There's a canoe launch not far from there. So Deese is one of 8, 5 sisters, 2 brothers. Oh, wow. That's a big, big family. I would recommend Black's Law Dictionary. Well, one problem is that Black's Law Dictionary doesn't actually have a very good plot. And Brian's one of a group of twins. That's interesting. And by the way, Tumblebug says, hey, dangerous Mr. Lehto, hello from California, land of In-N-Out Burger. Thank you very much for checking in. A couple of days ago, I did wear an In-N-Out Burger t-shirt, and the one I have, it's not obvious what it is, but it's got the In-N-Out arrow on it. A few people spotted it, but if you're not from the West and you've never eaten an In-N-Out Burger, it is the best hamburger joint as far as a chain goes that exists. So that's my little plug for today. But so I already have Black's Law Dictionary. Believe it or not, I do not have a law dictionary. I've got dozens of dictionaries, but do not have a Black's Law Dictionary. Jackson, Massachusetts, and Clyde is from Washington State. And Sam says, good to hear you like In-N-Out Burger. Hey, it's hard not to. If you like burgers, you like In-N-Out Burger. But that's the deal. We're at 1:37. I'm running out of steam here. So we're going to wrap it up for now. We got into 360, 370s. I'm pointing at a number on my screen. I don't know if it means much to you when I do this with my hand, but I'm pointing at the number. We're at 350 right now. But I appreciate the fact you guys all checked in. Next week, we'll do it on a Sunday afternoon. And again, thank you for hanging out with me, but I'm going to wrap it up right now. So just, again, 2 videos a day from here on out. And I already shot 2 for tomorrow, so that's how it works. Running the marathon tomorrow. Be with me in spirit. If you're awake between 7 a.m. and noon on Sunday, October 20th, think of me, because I'll be out there running someplace on the streets of Detroit and Windsor. Otherwise, talk to you later. Bye-bye.